All right, let's go ahead with today's discussion. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's panel discussion on generative AI, revolutionizing software development or replacing developers. Generative AI has become a buzzword in the tech industry with its potential to automate coding, improving productivity, and even redefining the role of software developers. Now, before it actually raises an important question, with this conversation about its limitations, ethical implications, and its broader impact on the future of work. I am joined by esteemed panel of industry leaders today who will share their insights on this fascinating topic. Let's start by having our panelists introduce themselves. I would like to call out your names, your designations to begin with, and I would request all of you to please share a quick trivia about yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ananda Shekhar Bhattacharjee, Head of AI Business Development and Solution Architecture, Lenovo Asia Pacific; Abhishant Anaspurabu, co-founder and head of product development NextGen; Deepak Dalai, CTO, vice president engineering at Smitten; and Vinay Konor, VP engineering, emerging technology, Unix learning. I think Ananda, can we begin with you, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Shukriti, for inviting me. It will be a pleasure to discuss with the esteemed panelists to understand what they also think about how AI is enabling developers, and also if they feel it's a replacement, which I don't feel. So I'd like to say that you were asking a questions that what's a trivia about myself. See, if I weren't immersed in this kind of a tech architecture, I'd really love to become a travel writer. Bending my love for explorations, I've been to the extreme places from Mozambique to Petra to Jordan to Tokyo Shinjuku district, which uncover hidden destinations, which is I do like a lot. Narrate, and it goes with my love for storytelling, unique experiences, and geek out the tech innovations that happening there also. And that would be really which I would be wanting to do if I'm not immersed in technology and now in AI.
Thanks, Ananda. Abhishant?
Yeah, so much. Thank you so much, Sukriti, for having us over. I think it's going to be an exciting discussion. Probably a little trivia about me is I'm a culprit of the usual cricket fever in our country, and I always, when I was younger, dreamed of playing cricket. So possibly, if I had the luxury, I would have taken time out and tried to become a cricketer. But it's a very, very big dream in a country like ours. So, but yeah, I think apart from that, this is what we're doing, and these are exciting times in this tech world as well. So, very, very excited to be a part of this.
Thank you. Deepak?
Hello everyone, my name is Deepak Dalai. Yeah, so a quick trivia about me. I am a person who actually loves teaching. I fundamentally believe that is one thing that can actually change our country for the better. I believe the right way to do that is to actually teach kids when they're very, very young. So my passion actually lies, apart from like building software, high performance code for a living. I like to enjoy teaching kids robotics and programming a little early on. I used to do that when I was a kid, and I'm trying to inculcate the same habit in my son and his young friends right now. He's 7 years old, but yeah, you'll be surprised how well kids actually pick up these things these days.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Deepak. Vinay?
Uh, uh, Hi everyone. I started my career into the software development, but soon I realized that the passion, like Deepak said, for sharing knowledge, to be an evangelist, and the very fact that how what you think, and the kind of professional skills, the soft skills that one has a great impact on the way people learn, the way people lead their life, the way they create success. Had a very big impact in my earlier days when I was working at Infosys. So, that's been my passion, moving from technology to see how we can be the enabler and how an individual can just be molded, right? Everybody has great potential. It's just that we have to remove, like a sculpture, we have to remove the unnecessary parts and bringing out the best, at whatever level. And at the core of it, all of us are like childlike, and just awareness of that and discovering of that has given me multiple aha moments, and that keeps us grounded, and that's what keeps me going.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for the lovely trivia about yourself that you've shared with us today. Before we begin, a quick housekeeping note for everybody. We'll have time for Q&A and the relevant ones once we're done with our conversation. So, audience, please feel free to drop in your questions in the chat window. If at all it's directed to one of our industry experts here, we shall take them up after our conversation. Okay, now let's dive right in here. I will start with the foundational question of our, of the conversation of our topic today, that is generative AI. And tools like ChatGPT, GitHub, Copilot are being used by developers to speed up coding and solve problems. Now, Ananda, how do you see these tools as enablers for developers rather than replacements? Ananda, we cannot hear you. You need to unmute yourself, please.
That's really an interesting question, Shukri, to start with. AI tools are definitely enablers as they can make code writing simple, they can make snippets of codes, they help you to debug, lots of things. They help you to do test it and finally deploy it also. So there are lots of things AI can do it on themselves. And there are lots, you also mentioned GitHub Copilot, Tab9. There are a lot of tools out there, Ansible, Harness, a lot of tools which are now available which helps you to do that. But my point is, you need to look at a much bigger picture. You need to look at a much bigger picture and tackle the engineering side of the problem, and see the engineering side of the problem. Creating a new product, creating a new product requires an engineering brain, understanding a customer problems. Many of the times when you start developing a product, you are not aware how do we go about it. Many a times customers are not clear about how the project will finally shape up. So lots of things which AI can do, but it's complementary. Lots of things which we need to make AI understand it. They are definitely enabler, but definitely human mind, engineering brain needs to be put across when you start to develop a product. But think about, do you want, say, for example, AI, do you want your engineers to focus on solving syntax errors? Or do you want them to create a very good UX, UI, UX? You'd want your engineers not to spend their quality time in finding a lot of syntax errors in a code. That AI can definitely enable you. Let them put their quality time where they are, where they can do the code better. And also, one thing I'd like to emphasize is AI has democratized, say, I will say, application development. Yeah, it's not that developers are now gatekeepers. Developers are not gatekeepers anymore. So somebody who has a creative bent of mind, has design ideas, can help them to develop. Say, for example, there are tools, Codex, like where you can write, give me a website for selling shoes. It will help you to create a website for selling shoes. So there are a lot of tools available. Your imagination is the key. Now it's I'll say that's what I say, democratized software development. So a lot of things, it's an enabler definitely, but it's definitely not a competition. There are multiple high level skills which an engineers are supposed to do.
Okay, thanks for that, Anga. Vinay, I would like to move to you. From your perspective, tell us how do these tools fit into the entire modern software development lifecycle? Because we've seen that contemporary touch, having set, just enabling the entire software industry every now and then, and every day it's a new thing that comes into the entire software development lifecycle, and some innovation sort of keeps on happening. So how do you see this fitting into it?
Yeah. So I think, Sukriti, what is happening is, you know, uh, this is giving an opportunity for people and for industry at large to migrate from a services mindset, which we typically have been, to a product mindset. Because as a country we need to build more products, and like Ananda said, it is across the software engineering life cycle. Yes, right now it has started a lot with the co-pilots, with coding, but also you don't have to spend hours trying to re-engineer, trying to create optimal code, secure code. testing, for example, right? I mean, you can just write test cases in a Wi-Fi. You don't really have to worry about sync. So there were days where there were separate manual testing teams. That is no longer required. So which means, you get time to start focusing on the end problem. Now with agile teams, the way software development life cycle from waterfall model has moved to agile, the whole idea is to quickly deliver, fail fast, and all that is possible right now because your focus is on the business problem. Right, you're not getting deep down drowned. I remember when I started, it was a core dump or a memory leak which used to take hours and sometimes sleepless nights, right? So those are like a back burner, which means if I'm starting my career or even if I'm a 1 or 2 years, I have now opportunity to learn design principles. I have opportunity to learn about how a code is, what does it take to build an architecture, what are the architecture principles, right? What is a solution architecture, what are the trade-offs? So the level of thinking and the level of engagement goes one notch up in the same software development life cycle, but you're doing more with much less.
All right. So that was about the foundational concept of entire Gen AI from the perspective of how it's faring out in the industry. Moving on to the next segment of our conversation for today, the question of whether AI will replace developers is a hot topic. Everybody is talking about it, and it's sort of a discussion that is on the coffee tables, there are round tables. People are just talking about it, that how it's going to happen. Abhishek, what's your take onto this? And do you think will developers face a decline in job opportunities, or will their roles simply evolve?
Absolutely. I think fundamentally, right, one very important thing that we must understand is that AI is not being built with intent today. The intent needs to come from the person utilizing artificial intelligence, be it an LLM model or an AI application that has augmented a model to create some use case. It does not do anything without a prompt or an initiation. So the first fundamental thing to understand, I believe, is that it needs to be instructed, guided, and told what to do so that you get an output, which essentially means that for a developer, if there is a co-pilot, it is augmenting their capabilities and not replacing their capabilities, because there needs to be an engineer who queries and prompts the AI model to get an output out of it, right? So that itself shows us and tells us that, hey, this is not going to come and replace your job, because there's not an agent sitting like a human being who's actually sitting and writing code. So that's great news, right? And I think when we look at the life cycle, like Vinay, rightly mentioned, the beauty is that it can integrate throughout the entire life cycle, all the way from starting, let's say, converting user stories into clear pointers for developers, right? And based on that, we actually internally use AI to even suggest tech stacks based on what the project requirements are. We even built a co-pilot internally because sovereignty is very important. So we took an open source model and put it on our own GPU infrastructure. And this co-pilot actually is used by all our developers to actually create code snippets, analyze the code that they have written before QA, and also write documentation. Because my all the development team that I work with are so great with the programming languages that they write. They're not really incentivized to sit and write long English documents. Like, they would be happy to write lines and lines of Python. But so even creation of documentation becomes a very, very big use case. Even beyond that, I think writing test cases, like Vinay mentioned, is such an important thing, because it used to be such a manual task, looking at the UI, UX, going and writing each dynamic flow that could be possible, which is automated by, a model actually looking at the user journey in the application and writing these on your behalf, technical documentation, so many use cases, right? But throughout, if you see, this is a developer and AI relationship. It is nowhere an independent thing where either an AI does things on its own or an engineer does things on its own. So the beauty is to understand that these tools are augmenting certain mundane tasks for the developers, and ensuring that their code is higher quality, error free, and allowing them to develop faster. So fundamentally, I believe, will AI replace engineers? No, but there could be a potential future where an engineer who uses AI could replace an engineer who doesn't use AI, right? And I think that is the most important takeaway, I believe, out of this.
Wonderful. I think you've actually pointed out a very critical aspect when it comes to the entire automation process, no matter if just artificial intelligence or anywhere that's happening across industry. Abhishant, Deepak, as someone who is leading the engineering teams in your company, in your organization, what advice would you give to developers to stay relevant in the age of generative AI? Because Abhishant has just shared that not learning AI, not knowing about it is a disadvantage clearly. What other thing would you like to bring into the light here, Deepak?
It's a very interesting question. When you talk about relevance in general, like this question has been haunting developers and a wide set of professionals for a very long time. To be very honest, like if you go back to the 1950s and 60s, when Lisp came out as a new programming language, it was literally synonymous to artificial intelligence back then. It was theorized that this will revolutionize AI, and you will not need developers anymore. You don't need punch cards. Don't need like assembly languages. You don't need C. This one language will basically solve it for everyone, and developers will end up losing their jobs. Same thing happened with when object-oriented programming came in. Same thing happened when Python revolutionized the entire data science and ML industry. So yeah, this discussion has been going on and off for a very long time, and that has never happened. And there's a very basic reason to it that these tools, like we have to first acknowledge the fact that these LLMs and the GPTs of the world, the co-pilots of the world, they are nothing but extremely fancy, extremely high performant tools. That's what we have to clearly understand. Yeah. So what will change, which Abhishant very clearly pointed out here, is that yeah, a person who actually knows how to use these tools will naturally be significantly better than the one who doesn't, and that is going to be the distinguishing factor. Now, deciding relevance right now, given the current state of AI, I think will not be justified because if you look at the state of Gen AI in general, and I categorize AI into these two clear categories right now. We used to have the good old AI, which was regressions, predictions, classifications, image identifications, and all that. And then this huge new revolution came in. Google came up with their Transformers paper in 2017, and then the entire world was running towards Gen AI. People started building bots, started building chat sessions, and they said that, yeah, we'll change the world with this. So since Gen A has basically picked up, people have gotten carried away a bit too much, and they think that this will basically go and change literally everything. Especially founders, by the way. If I talk about my boss right now, since he started using GPT and Claude and Gemini, he's like, you give them any product problem, he's like, हाँ इसमें GPT डाल दो, solve हो जाएगा. So the job of a developer is, I mean, it will remain relevant as long as they clearly understand what a GPT can do and what it cannot. And this particular truth is going to change. It is changing very fast. If you compare GPT, let's say 1 year ago versus what it is today, there's a hell and heaven difference. GPT was doing beautiful code generation even back in 2020 to 23. But then, yeah, everyone speculated. So what? If you have to tell it that, okay, I want a binary search on this particular use case where my data is stored in so and so fashion, but it cannot understand my code base. My code base is 10,000, well, let's say hundreds of thousands of lines of code. And then, comes in Gemini and tells you that, oh, here's a 2 million token context window. We will read your entire code base, and now I can do anything on top of it. So yeah, these things are changing very fast. We are literally sitting out 2 million. I won't be surprised if we reach out 10 million, 50 million token windows in the next year or two. So AI will be able to do a lot more. Developers, as I said, engineers in general, they will absolutely remain relevant as long as they keep learning these new tools, they understand the clear capabilities, and they, more importantly, understand the limitations as well. And people who actually do not embrace AI openly, with their open arms, saying that yes, this is what I'm going to move on to. I will use this tool because it is going to be very beneficial to me. They will eventually suffer. So I mean, I know that the jobs will not go away, but yeah, it is going to be a little difficult for people who do not actually adapt. That is my core take on this. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Deepak. So clearly, I think a major takeaway from yours and Abhishant, insight here is that generative AI is very powerful. It's helping us in all possible manners, but it's not perfect. We still need human brain to, sort of navigate. We sort of make decisions when it comes to the final output of any project that a person is a
Yeah,
developer is
and what
trying
I'm
to
saying
solve.
is it will get better. I'm not saying that, let's say, it cannot do something right now, say that fine. So since the Gen AI cannot do it today and my developer can, that
Mhm.
ensures a person's job, let's say, for the next 10 years. It cannot do it today, it'll literally probably do it in the next 6 months. But then
Absolutely.
still,
And
there will
this is
be
something else.
complicated business problems that a
Yeah.
bot will never be able to solve. That's one side of things. And secondly, what engineers, like engineers in general, should basically try to understand here is there are these set of tools which will actually help them build their software better. Like in general, software
Hmm.
development is writing, they'll be able to do that. They also have to clearly understand what are the business use cases where AI can actually fit into. Because as Ananda rightly pointed out, people talk about democratizing this industry, democratizing that industry. That's a typical sales pitch for any investor meeting. But there is no technology in the world that I believe has democratized an industry the way Gen AI has. Because earlier, if I wanted to do a simple AI model, sentiment classification, I have a feedback. I want to know whether it is a positive feedback or a negative feedback. I have to first generate that entire data, train my model, all of it, build my entire MLOps pipeline before I do my first prediction. Today, I have the feedback. I hit a Gemini API, a ChatGPT API, and ask it to classify it into positive, neutral, and negative. It'll do it for me. So it has basically opened up access to all of these tools, which we could not have thought about this 3 years, 4 years ago. That is how it is basically changing the life of the developers. They should openly accept this and actually use it as the powerful tool that it is.
All right. So as we are moving to the to the horizon, where I can say that the changes are happening, and it's happening only for your good, developers out there. There are certain limitations also that exist within this generative AI arena that I may quote so. So, Anna, what are some of the current limitations of these tools that you can actually trace for us right now, and how can developers work around them?
So Deepak, Abhishek, Vinay has already mentioned some of those, but we need to aware that first and foremost is the lack of contextual understanding. So an AI tools may be good in say in enhancing your productivity, but they will never understand a business problem. Correct? A business problem is something which a developer needs to understand, and many a time it, as I said, it evolves over time. So many a time when I was working on projects, the customer itself is not aware in the start. So after a lot of feedback, we give the feedback, we develop, we discuss, then it evolves over time what it needs to be done. It's not an AI tools will be able to do it. Think about having something creative. Think about having something creative. Do you have a competitive edge if I have to put in a product? It's not an AI tools will be able to do it, or say for example, says what kind of UX I have to create. So that's not having something a creative bend of mind. So that AI tools, sometimes AI tools I've seen have bias. I don't know if you have seen that MIT Media Labs. They have come out with a report that's saying that the facial recognition systems in the US have a bias towards darker skin for more crimes. More crimes. Maybe MIT Media Labs had come out with that report that more darker skins. So that's a bias. How do you have that bias? For example, if you see in recruitment they say for STEM roles and for technical roles, the AI models have a bias against women. So that may be because the historical data on which they have trained, women say maybe 20 years back were not coming into the technical roles, not coming into the technical roles which they are coming now. So in India itself, we all understand and see the number of engineering women and engineers till now, it's huge difference. But if you go to so there are a lot of bias that way, which are there in this kind of AI tools. Then there's a sense of cost attached to it. There is a licensing cost. There's a huge amount of computing resources there. Then there's an ethical compliances. Say, for example, you can't have for all projects. If you are aware, there is a HIPAA compliance, there's a GDPR compliances. There are a lot of compliances. I can't expect my AI tools to be aware of what kind of compliances, where, which country, or what kind of where it needs to be applied to. So there are. If I go on limiting it, it will be unending. But finally, I will end with something which is the lack of accountability. See, they can give a code, but who is accountable for it? Is AI accountable for it? It's not, correct? It's ultimately an engineer who is accountable for that code, for all the things which I have said. Let it be bias, let it be ethics, let it be right code, everything which has got. So it's not that they will ever be accountable for it. So accountability for the code lies with the engineers. So that's what I want to
Here's
say.
here's an interesting catch, Anna, with this. So when we say that it's going to ease your job, it is actually a sort of responsibility which comes with the decision making while you're using these tools, right? And you clearly mentioned that the automated machines and generative AI or any technology for that matter who is aiding, assisting you with anything will not have the onus of making mistakes or sort of developing any stereotypical outputs that it will have. It is us humans who feed it into that system, and that's what the output is all about. So thank you. That was an interesting reference, Anda. So Deepak, as Anda mentioned, a couple of limitations that exist around generative AI. I would like to know from you: have you encountered any challenges in deploying AI-driven tools in your engineering teams? And if anybody has come up with something that you've resolved with these tools.
Yeah, there have actually been a bunch. Uh, to be honest, the greatest barrier to get into AI development, AI-based application development in general, especially post the Gen AI revolution, has been an entry barrier in terms of the learning curve. Okay, there's a lot of resources available, and it is, in my honest opinion, it's too cluttered. For 99% of the people out there, it seems like magic, which kind of creates an apprehension for them to actually get into this. It seems that, if, oh, okay, I mean, GPT can do it, but how am I actually going to integrate that into my system? GPT, I mean, there are these tools where, when I actually started exploring this like a couple of years ago, it actually seemed like magic, right? I mean, you have a particular problem statement, and I say that, okay, I want this response in JSON, let's say. I don't want it in plain text. Send it to me in JSON or send it to me in HTML, and it would just beautifully do that just by a config parameter. And then I would say that, you know what, I want you to actually learn this context from this particular website, get the relevant data, and then answer this particular question, and it actually do that. It will do that for you as well. So these things, while they seem a bit too complicated right now, that actually pose as the initial barrier for anyone who actually is trying to get into these tools, actually start using them in production. And when I'm talking about like use them, I'm not talking about using them for the regular software development. I'm talking about the products that they're actually building. How do they fit into the actual products in terms of AI use cases? I mean, the biggest barrier there is to declutter this information, have a clear understanding of how a core LLM basically works. At the back of it, it is nothing but an extremely large language model which has been trained on a huge amount of data, and it can do a specific set of tasks as long as it has been trained to do that. If you know that, and then you know, okay, how can you feed in additional context, what a context window actually means, how can you actually force
Mhm.
it to return data in a particular format, how can you make it multimodal. If these things are decluttered and it actually resonates with your engineers, they clearly understand how these things are supposed to be built, how they're supposed to be used, and what will work, what will not. Uh, that makes things a lot easier for the engineers to actually accept this as a technology and start using them. Unless they have that clarity in mind, it becomes very difficult to them. It's pure magic, right? I mean, my professor used to tell this all the time, that you were not allowed to use an abstraction unless you clearly understood it. Seems like a very simple statement, but in my mind, it's very very strong. Like for example, I mean, there's this function which basically does something, takes an array and actually sorts
Mhm.
it. By all means, don't write the function yourself. Go and use it. But before doing that, you have to go through the code and understand how is it exactly doing it. So if it breaks, you know how to fix it. Gen AI is no different. The abstraction is much larger, it's much wider. It takes a little more time to actually get through all of this, but once you get a clear sense of what is being built, what are people actually working on next, what can I expect in the next 6 months, how do I plan for that? Engineers actually start accepting Gen AI very easily. It's just that initial barrier that has to be crossed.
All right. Now, with sort of these limitations, I am sure that there are areas which also touch base with ethical and legal implications of Gen AI in today's time. And companies will have to adhere to these guidelines, these protocols, the fundamentals that exist across verticals. And it actually raises ethical and legal concerns, and accountability or ownership, let's just say, is one of the AI generated code, if it happens to be at all, can be one of the concerns that can put an organization, an individual into a suite. Now, Abhishant, how should organizations navigate through these complexities? Because when we talk of using these tools, we should also understand the correct the usage of these tools precisely. So, what would you like to share here?
Absolutely. Yeah. Very interesting question, because as a CSP, understanding compliance, understanding sovereignty has been a very big part of us delivering sovereign cloud services to our customers. And where this relates is actually, there are fundamental challenges, right, which all the panelists have highlighted. First starts with how contextual the AI is to the actual problem or to the actual code base that it is working on. Two is, what are the ethical implications, right? And three, the most important thing is, if I am using a public AI tool or a LLM model like ChatGPT or Gemini, I am also exposing my IP to a company that is non-sovereign, right? So as an organization, number one priority for me is to protect my IP, right? And number two is, I want to ensure that I can be accountable in terms of what the AI tool has generated in terms of code. So how would one go about this, right? I mean, it is the organization's responsibility to invest in AI infrastructure to begin with, right? If they are very serious about going down the path of utilizing AI tools, not just for internal operational efficiency, but if they want to create AI based touch points for their end customers as well, right? What having your own AI infrastructure allows you to do is, you can leverage open source models and actually deploy it on your infrastructure, and you can train this model on your fundamental data, right? This could be your own code bases, your internal processes, so many various things that you can actually train this open source model on. And you can actually guardrail and fine tune this to ensure that you can make it accountable, right? So in this process of pre-training and fine tuning of this model, you will actually be able to ensure that you've brought this tool or this model up to a stage where it could be accountable enough, compliant enough, right? And most importantly, protecting your IP. So if I use an AI tool that is running within my network and my infrastructure, I know that I am not utilizing any public tool and exposing my IP, because my code is my intellectual property and I want to protect it. Now, my code might be finally used by my end customer, and tomorrow I can't go and say कि ये section तो AI ने लिखा है तो इसमें errors आ रहे हैं. I can't do that. I mean, I don't have that luxury, right? So I think for AI to be powerful and to be safe, I think it is very important that it is contextualized on what you are building. And there is also a process done to ensure that there are certain guardrails and certain fine tuning that is done to ensure that the AI is functioning in a manner that is acceptable for our organization, for the application that we want to build, or any AI applications that we want to build as well, right? So I think this is a process which organizations should take a responsibility for, because private AI is the future when you talk about enterprise, right? We Large enterprises will not be able to consume APIs and build reliable tools and function. I think that will not be the way it happens. So if engineers are to have powerful tools which keep getting better, I think there has to be an AI factory within the organization, slowly building up as time goes up and as tangible the investments into AI infrastructure become for the organization, and gradually build these tools, contextualize these tools, and safeguard these tools well enough so that they can be actually used in production from an organizational point of view. I think this is my take. Yeah.
All right, so precisely it's the synergy between humans and AI that needs to be, put together in the right manner in order to empower the tool in the right manner. Ananda, I would like to move to you when we talk of the synergy, the collaboration between humans and AI. How can we foster a symbiotic relationship between AI and human developers altogether?
That's crucial, I would say. So for that, first we need to communicate clearly to the role of AI to the as a productivity tool to the developers and not as a competition. This will lead to developers more experimenting with AI, features, discover the effectiveness, and approaches they will take for that code and make adjustments as needed. That needs to be made very clear to the developers that you need to embrace AI, but don't take them as a competition. Then they themselves will go and make the AI tool much better, train it with the right data. And see, for AI, what is AI helping them? AI helping them is to do an upskilling. AI helping them to do a reskilling part. So they on their part can also help AI on those tools to train them better with the relevant set of data. So that symbiotic relation needs to be there from both the sides. Secondly, there has to be clear policies and guidelines. Policies and guidelines needs to be so that people are aware, what engineers are aware that these needs to be, if this is to be come up, this is acceptable as at the code generation is out. That policies and guidelines should be there. For ethics and compliances, clear protocols should be set up. So these protocols type should be set up for what they can do. My view is that on a overall, if we come out with clear guidelines, clear protocols, and explain to the engineers that this is, don't think them as a competition, think them that how you can enhance that AI tools. AI tool is better as we feed more data and we make it much better in precision. So that they will also embrace it more. The fact that we are discussing here, it's a competition, is something which will deter somebody, correct? From AI, using an AI tool, if tomorrow it becomes a competition. That way, both of them can be at a synergy. The engineers can make the AI tools better. AI tools can help them productive better in terms saving them time and upskilling and reskilling with far higher level say skills rather than going into finding a syntax error.
All right. Thanks, Ananda, for that. That was from the standpoint of individually when you look at developers. Vinay, what strategies can teams, the tech teams in organizations adopt to maximize the potential of such collaborations?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sukriti. What we have seen is currently we are into the skilling space, so we see this day in and day out. Uh, a lot of demystifying AI. Deepak spoke about it. It's very very important, right? Otherwise, it's not you press a button and abracadabra everything happens, right? It's not true. We all know that. So right now across organizations there has been an AI literacy, right? So that's if you take a pyramid, there's the bottom of the pyramid, there's the middle management, there's leadership. So different strategies to empower. In fact, we've been involved in multiple skilling programs for the leadership because they need to understand in a completely different note. Because usually you get to go the tech route and people log off. That this is too much of technology, right? But the storytelling is very important in terms of like what Ananda was mentioning, Abhishant was mentioning. It is so true, right? So it's important. So across the board, how do you create a literacy, but more importantly, how do you start identifying low hanging fruits first? So what has happened in many organizations, especially the very progressive ones, and I'm talking about organizations which are in core engineering, right, where technology was they're not their mainstream, correct? I mean, when I say technology, the IT technology. But what they've started to do is because of generative AI, traditional AI, the focus has become very, very prominent because that is the base. Without the base, you can't build it. I mean, you can't fake it to a large extent, right? So there were strategies where you try to bring in AI, traditional AI or generative AI skills into organizations and try to create a change. Did not work because you need to understand the business context, you need to understand the domain. So what organizations have started to do is get their high performance folks within, let's say, we are doing for many manufacturing industries, right? Get them, they are electrical engineers, mechanical engineers on the ground working in a power plant, right? Now today they're all they're managing a lot of data, a lot of sensor data with industry IR 4.0, 5.0. All of that is happening right in front of them. So you get them, and it is a uphill start, but you have to teach them Python, right? You have to teach them basic machine learning, which is a foundation. So when they start looking at that, when that gets demystified, the expectation also sets right, that this is this is some deep work, right? This is some serious stuff. And then when you look at AI maturity to also generative AI coming in, they are able to relate and connect because they have the base foundation. Very few people are doing it as I speak, but those who are doing it have gone on full scale. They're not looking at, if I just do it, what's my ROI? No, those are stupid questions, right? You can't ask ROI saying that, if I just adopt Gen AI tomorrow, does it show in my top line? Does it show in my bottom line? Right? Because what see the way silos is being built today across organizations. Everybody has learned AI or Chat GPT more to write emails, summarization. That is happening, correct? But I was attending a conference and one of the speakers said, so that is happening and led to what kind of an impact? It has created an impact where I have time to watch a Netflix movie, right? Or chit chat. Or but is it giving the impact for the organization as a whole? Right? The interconnectedness among teams, among systems, where you use AI to actually say that this was the achieved productivity from a business point of view, revenue point of view, or cost point of view, right? So that's a journey which one has to take. AI is getting smarter, but the ability of people to really appreciate and acknowledge and use this is kind of going down because it's being at a very superficial level, right? Just the users.
Yeah.
That has to scale up. And if that scales up, those who are early in that game will be the winners.
Such a fantastic aspect you've brought in, Vinay. And I think the training here is very important, and training right is more important, rather. So, and this is our next segment of conversation, anyways. How are we going to train AI for software developments and using it in the right manner? And of course, training AI to write codes requires vast data sets, as all of us know. Deepak, what are the challenges in sourcing quality data for training AI models? Because Ananda also mentioned that the biasness, one of the limitations being seen in the market at this point in time, uh, depends on the kind of data we are trying to feed into the models, and then the output that is created out of it. So, what quality of data do you think is the challenging part when you try to bring into the system?
Okay, so I would like to break this answer into two parts. One is generating training data for code writing specific use cases. Very honestly, sourcing that data is not a challenge at all. The whole reason why one of the core use cases that any of these Gen AI platforms, any of these GPTs are trying to solve is code generation, is not primarily because that was the biggest problem to be actually solved. One major underlying factor over there is that code is one of the most commonly available digital content out there. For every movie and poem and book and everything that you have out there available over the free internet, you probably have more amount of code setting out there for every possible use case, every possible application, in every possible imaginable language. Data sourcing for this specific use case, in my opinion, is not a challenge at all. There's more than data available, and a lot of that has already been sourced. For your specific use cases, as Avishan mentioned, I mean, there is going to be proprietary information that you hold. Code that is very contextual to your specific company, your specific applications. Uh, Again, that is not a problem because it's your data, you own it. You take an open source model, deploy it where you want, train it on top of that, and you have a model which is basically working according to the way your company's engineers would have actually done it. So that's not a problem in general. But yeah, talking about the broader use cases of Gen AI and the data sourcing challenges over there. The good part over there is that earlier in traditional AI, every data sourcing problem used to be on the person who was actually trying to build that model. If you were lucky, you would have data sources available by some researcher, some government organization, some large company who have been generous enough to collate that data and actually make it publicly accessible to people who want to actually use and build their own models. And you had to be very lucky for that. But what has basically changed in the Gen AI use case and which is very good for like all of us sitting here. That's what I believe is that all of these companies, be it Claude, be it GPT, be it Gemini, they are all competing against each other, and none of them are trying to solve one particular use case. They have to be extremely good at every use case that you throw at them. So if you ask them a legal question, if you ask them to write a poem, if you ask them to write a complex code, everyone is expected to do that in the best possible manner. So irrespective of whether you are trying to train your model or not, it doesn't matter. These guys are working day and night with resources a lot larger than we could possibly imagine, trying to make their models better. Right. So in my opinion, that is something that we shouldn't primarily be worried about. Companies who actually want to train, models on their own proprietary data, they typically have abundant amount of that data sitting with them. I mean, there was this whole wave of companies which came into existence during the entire Bitcoin surge. They were building the Web3 applications back there, and today they are building the AI applications. Those died off; these will die off as well. But these traditional companies, imagine a company which is an expert in legal. They have the best possible solutions for any possible legal use case. If they decide to bring in AI to solve their use cases, they will have more than enough data, probably in the digital content available to train their models. They'll be able to go ahead and do that. A new company which says that they have no legal background, but I want to build an app for the lawyers where they can ask any question and they expect to get an answer, they're probably just kidding themselves, and they should probably not do that. So again, they don't need to worry about it. Does that answer your
Okay.
question?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a very fair point made, but I'm not sure if this is a relief for the developers out there or not. When we talk of somebody else working upon it, and it's gonna sort of
Yeah,
assist
it's
you
good.
in
Like,
productivity.
they're just making that tool better for them. Like, as a developer, I'm glad
Absolutely,
if Gemini is trying to make better code for me. By all means, go ahead and do that.
absolutely. Okay, quickly, Abhishant, what trends do you see emerging in AI training for software developments? Can we just quickly have two, three from your end?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we go forward, there's going to be three forms of AI adoption from an enterprise context, which finally means that those are extremely relevant for any engineering teams or engineer working in these organizations, right? One is you're going to start having applications which are currently within the enterprise embedded with AI, because that's what those software vendors' journey is. Second thing is, there will be individuals and engineers who bring their own AI into the system, right? These could be tools they use. I see my designers using Mid Journey and other kind of image generation tools, right? And the third and the most important thing is going to be built AI, which is going to be built by enterprises, which is contextual on their own AI hardware, on their own data sets, like Deepak mentioned, right? So, what does this mean to an engineer? Is that there will be tools which you are currently using, like a VS Code, which will have copilots. There will be tools which you discover online, which people have made AI applications which you will use. And your enterprise where you are working is also going to be building contextual tools, right? All these are circled around not replacement, but they're circled around increasing productivity, and they're circled around interaction with the current ecosystem of engineers that they have, right? No one is in the imagination of trying to build an agent that can replace a person, because that is just not true. Just like how Deepak mentioned, it's not real today, right? So the beauty is that all of these tools are going to be built. Existing tools are going to get embedded with AI. So the question really comes back to, I think, what Ananda and Vinay mentioned so correctly. It's like you have to accept this curve that is going to come in front of you, and slowly and steadily try to adopt this into your development life cycle, right? Adopt it slowly. Think about the ways you could become more productive by using these tools, and don't have resistance towards it. Don't have ambiguity towards it, but embrace it, right? This is just like, I mean, this could be as big of an age as how the internet age was when it first came, right? So I think it's very, very crucial that, when AI comes to us in these forms, that it becomes very, very important. And final trend that I see, which is going to become very important, especially in regulated industries like BFSI, healthcare, very highly sovereign industries, that private AI is going to become a very, very big play. I think this is something that most OEMs are also focused on, how to build private infrastructure in enterprises, like, because if health and financial services need to embed AI, I think it is very, very important that that is sovereign and private. So that this is going to be a huge role, and we are trying to play our part to build sovereign virtual clouds for these people, these organizations, so that they could have AI infrastructure that is compliant. And finally, I just want to leave one point, that we had actually left a few AI applications open for developers to use. It's on our website called speedcloud.nextgen.com. We actually have built our own co-pilot. It's called Ada. It's left free to use because we actually want to bridge the gap between generative AI and applied generative AI. So please use it. You can attach it into VS Code, and it's free of cost to use. This is just so that you can understand how to use AI to generate code, to analyze code, or to generate documentation. But I think the idea is get familiar with it, just play around with it, and just be the person who is adopting this technology, rather than competing with the person who has adopted this technology. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, now as we move to the last segment, and I would not want to, actually conclude this conversation without touch basing generative AI beyond the coding that we've just discussed. And, as all of us speak of the entire system of generative AI being utilized in the industry, I'm sure that there is usage beyond developers and beyond coding. Ananda, how do you see AI expanding into other areas like design, testing, deployment, or any other sector you want to highlight, as per your expertise here? Ananda, we cannot hear you. You need to unmute, please.
Okay. These aspects, AI is already making a big impact. Design aspects, if you are aware, one of the large use case or one of the large focus for manufacturing is digital twins, where you can create a digital twin of a factory, a product, a process. You can create the entire design of whatever is your end product. You can embed all the IoT data, the sensors data, and you can see the impact of them before you actually come out with the product. So it is a very very emerging field in the design aspects when you do. I've seen Samsung has a complete design factory which before they had to do they came out with a factory for a factory for this called digital twin. Omniverse and a lot of tools are available nowadays which can you can create that in design aspects. So that's tools. And for prototyping, say for example, suggesting layout. So you have tools like Firefly, Figma AI already being available nowadays. Tools are getting better. I'm not saying it's fully emerged because I've tried to use Firefly. That's from Adobe and others, but that's getting better. But that there are tools which are getting into the design part, as I mentioned, big pushes towards digital twins, which pushes toward digital twins. And next you said about testing and development. Testing and development we discussed a lot. Use cases, testing and development, there are a lot. Testing that iOS, there are a lot of tools which are available in testing and development. Deployment, there have been tools which have been there for some time. Like if you have used Harness or Ansible, there's a tool called Ansible in the CI/CD pipeline. If you are in the DevOps area, you must have come across that. Ansible has introduced a lot of machine learning is a part of its deployment tools. You can roll back if that's not compatible. So a lot of things have been there in actually your testing and deployment phase, which has already been there. So design phase, definitely we are all looking towards designing say digital twins to human robots and all things like that, which will be available. And testing phase, I'm seeing that it's about, I'll say it's better progress than the design phase. Testing phase is the next level, and
All
deployment.
right. Thanks for that, Ananda. Vinay, this is the last bit here. I wanted to understand if at all this is going to impact the entire traditional software development process which now exists in the market.
Yeah. So, Sukriti, you know, this is a kind of a dilemma which many people have, saying that if AI is so good, how come still you need developers, right? Still traditional. You ask anybody, how is your overall software development process? You meet many of the developers and ask them, if you're working on, let's say, SAP, or you're working on a full stack application, how much of AI have they been using, right? It'll be very, very marginal to begin with, right? And that's a different scenario. There are organizations within which for coding that they're using, yes, but if you see the percentage of overall acceptance and adoption, it is incremental and very, very incremental. Right now, everything is based, what determines whether a technology rules or not is the business, right? Is the revenue, is ultimately the economics is what determines. Now if you look at services companies, the cost arbitrage was, it's what made the whole game successful, right? So ultimately it is using technology versus using manpower, right? Who will rule? If my manpower costs are very low and my usage of technology is high at the moment, my manpower will rule. But with time, as we are all discussing, we know it's a matter of time. There are multiple things which have to fall in place, right? We say data, compute power, and it's. I mean, if we keep our eyes open, we know it's all happening. But we don't know, might happen few months, few years. So in the traditional life cycle per se will remain, because operational efficiency is what every company targets, right? Operational efficiency in terms of all kind of automation that they want to bring in. They want to do maximum with less. And recently, if you look at what happened in 21, 22, if you needed a Java developer or a React developer, he was coming at 25 lakhs suddenly, right? So people don't want to go that route. They want to optimize. So across the software development life cycle, like Abhishant was mentioning, it will be your private AI, right? Can I start developing tools to create ROI? So right from requirements to design to development, those stages will still remain because every product has to go through that cycle. But can I develop my own tools? Do I have to rely on tools available in the market which costs a bomb, or there are subscription prices, or can I develop it right there, right? So that is where skilling, competency in the overall process efficiency through AI and embedding AI in smaller tools, which means there's a shift of mindset, right? There's a shift of mindset from the way a project is managed to actually now thinking of a product, and it's not just one product, multiple products. And why do I have to depend only on a GitHub Copilot, right? I can build my own Copilot and then offer it to my customers, correct? So we will see change in those lines, right? Where companies have started to build their own tools across each of the life cycle now, and that's a journey that they will have to take. It requires skilling, it requires the readiness in terms of people, in terms of infra. But I guess that is the change that you will see in the traditional software development life. And just to add, I mean, if you look at testing itself, right? I can have automation tools to do AI, embedded tools to do testing, and I can also test my AI models. I can have AI for cybersecurity, or I can have cybersecurity in AI. Multiple options, right? So that is the way the whole industry we see going.
Thanks. I think that's quite helpful, Vinay. I mean, when we talk of the entire process, I think the innovation is penetrating at every level, as you mentioned, and the direction, the navigation is very important here. And Abhishant, as you mentioned, private AI coming into the picture very soon. All of us will have more customized output, especially the companies will have more customized output to look at and offer when we talk of the services here. Thank you so much for those beautiful insights, gentlemen. I will quickly have a look at the questions that we have from audience today. Um, okay, so I have a question from Nikesh. After AI is introduced, freshers didn't get a job. Okay, this is another job aspect question. Can you tell this is true or not? I also have 2025 med students still not getting a job. Okay, so Ananda, Deepak, Abhishant, Vinay, who would want to address this?
Yeah, I think I can take that. See, a job is a function of a more macroeconomic scenario. We deal, we are the bridge between enterprises and the colleges, right? So we help upskill. So we see that day in and day out coming in. So there are other macroeconomic conditions which are leading to this. It is not just about because suddenly AI has come and that's why nobody is getting job. But then what is going to happen is it will not exactly go up to the level what it was, let's say pre-pandemic or pre 2020, pre the AI revolution, especially 2022 with the Chat GPT release, right? So that's where everybody is looking at problem solvers. So the job is a function of, can you develop problems, and I'll tell you, this is coming. I mean, this is for the person who's asking your soft skills. What is your attitude of learning? That becomes very important. Can you collaborate? I know you can collaborate. I'm busy in my Instagram reels, but can I talk to another person? Can I get information? Can I collaborate? Can I ask the right questions? How is my communication skills? If you are at that par, there are plenty jobs. The problem right now is there are plenty jobs available, but skills are not there, right? And there are many people available, but they don't have the right skills, right? So if you skill in the right direction, gone are the days where you say, I have learned Java, or I've done the Java certification, so get me a job. That is gone, right? So there is a holistic, all dimension, multi-dimension skill which you'll have to be ready with, and that is exciting, because that is what will give you a motivation to go and do your work every day.
Okay, thanks for that, Vinay. I hope your question is answered. I have another one from Vikas. In IT, what will AI ML affect the developer and service sector jobs domain? So I think this is another segment that has come up for us in the questions. The floor is open. Ananda, Deepak, Abhishant, Vinay, if you would like to address about the service sector job of AI ML that we're talking about here.
Sukriti, could you please repeat the question once?
So the person is asking that in IT, what will affect AI
Mhm.
ML, the developer, of course, the job sector when we talk of the service sector job domain. Do you think AI ML will affect the developer's job there in the service sector?
I mean, see, a developer is a developer. You're working for a service company, you're working for a product company. Doesn't, I mean, yeah, I mean, the kind of work, the nature of the work that you do might be slightly different, but at the end, you're basically building code for a living. That doesn't change much. But yeah, one gap that I actually see happening, and that will happen very soon. I can see that happening even today. Is that earlier, as Vinay actually rightly pointed out, there's one side of the problem which is actually the problem solving, and then there's actually going ahead and implementing that thing in code on your actual application. Now the thing is, no matter how difficult the problem is, the typical split is it might take maybe 10-15% of my time to come up with that brilliant idea to actually solve this, and then I'll probably spend, let's say, a couple of days to convert that idea into code and actually see it into production. Now, Gen AI in general has basically bridged this gap, right? So now the problem is, if you're comparing me with someone else who is maybe not that good a developer, but he's, let's say, decent, and hypothetically, let's say I'm slightly better. So the main difference that where it comes in is I might be able to solve a set of problems which faster and in a better way than my counterpart. Instead of, let's say, 2 hours that he took, maybe I'll do it in an hour. But to actually write down that code, both of us would roughly take the same amount of time, considering similar programming skills. Gen AI is going to disrupt this. It's completely going to disrupt this, because now once I have my solution, I am going to use my Copilot or whatever other tool that I have, in my IDE, and I can just explain it and get the code out in a matter of like half an hour. And that's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, going ahead, problem solving, maths in general, for everyone who's actually listening to this, focus on your fundamentals. Make sure you're good at maths. There was a time where you could, just scrape through without being good at your fundamentals and just, learning one programming language or the other. Gen AI is changing that for you. Programmers in general, the need for them is going to go down. What we'll need are genuinely good, strong problem solvers. Focus your skills on that.
And just want to add here, I think great points, Deepak. We are an IT services company, and I think a lot of it is very close to what Vinay mentioned. I think there is so much around getting an individual to join your organization beyond technical skill set, especially in IT services, because actually IT services is a 24/7 industry. I mean, we have to keep our IT service running, whether it's SaaS, PaaS, or infrastructure as a service. It has to work 24/7. A customer's application cannot go down, right? So there is so much character and attitude involved in the people, beyond just your technical ability. Like, are you willing to learn new technology? Are you willing to go above and beyond to ensure uptime and continuity of IT services? So while there is great points on the technical piece, I think the entire attitude and approach is so important in IT services specifically, because the service has to be up no matter what. So
Mm.
And I will add one point from the fact that I will just conclude fast. I see it's already time. So is that the jobs I feel will increase. Primarily, I see two types of customers. One type of customer is those they say we will develop everything on our own. The Philips, the GEs, they will say we will develop it, or maybe. But there is a plethora of customers who say I don't want to develop anything. I met a tire company a few days back. He says I want a facial recognition and a door should open. I'm not going to develop all these things. Give me a services company who will develop it. They are not aware of it. So there are many in IT industry. There are many who are consumers of AI. They're not developers. Let it be a tire company, a retail company, let it be a manufacturing company. So they need services company now to develop something. We are still in the realm of ANI. We call it artificial narrow intelligence. Specific problems, specific solutions. So you will see a lot of startups coming up. Your AI industry is full of startups. They are doing a lot of business problems which they are solving, and that will create, I feel, a lot of jobs which were not there.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. This has been an enlightening discussion, and generative AI is indeed revolutionizing the entire software development. And it's very clear with your insights that the human element remains irreplaceable. Thank you so much for your insights, as experts that you've shared with us today. Ananda, Abhishant, Deepak, Vinay. It was a fantastic conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed having these insights, coming in from your end today to help our audience understand the generative AI aspect better, to work with it better. Let's continue the conversation and explore how we can shape the entire future of AI in software development together and not be afraid of it, rather empower it. Everyone, we've recorded this session. It will be available in 24 hours on the same webinar page where you've registered. So, in case if you've missed any aspect here, you can get back to the recording and re-listen to our industry experts talking about it. Once again, Vinay, Abhishant, Deepak, and Nanda, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation and have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting
Thank you so much.
thank
this
you. Thank you
great.
for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was a
Really
pleasure,
glad.
guys.
thank you.
Yeah,
Bye
bye
bye.
bye.
Thank you all. Wonderful.